go. 1 second. Here we go. This. I see you, Theresa. I'll put you up in just a second. We'll allow people to get have time to get in. So these shows resonate. Please share, get the word out in the next couple of minutes, and we'll allow people to gather in, and then we're going to meet a new face, Theresa, and get to know her and have a conscious conversation. Let's just play a little bit of a Soulogy activation while we're waiting for people to come in.
Machawe samete ochivasi e kamatai. Masetea achiamate. Mesawe chawatamake. Esawe chamate. Matea. Matea. Chemasawe mate. Hi. Aishta matikia tamataya mahaya. E chamatia ya sakataya matoi. E samataya ya. E mai mataya mai.
Okay, we're ready to roll now. Let me just check Facebook real quick, make sure we're online. We got 36 people in the house. I'm going to put the link up for Zoom because we have had problems for 3 weeks, people getting knocked off these shows. So you can go into the Zoom room. We had like 30 people in the Zoom room on the last show. If you're having problems. All right. Okay, let's bring up our beautiful, beloved sister guest. I'm excited to get to know her. Let me just get it going. Hey, Theresa.
Hey, Todd.
How are you doing? Can you hear me all right?
I can. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Perfect.
I can hear you just fine. What was I going to do? Oh, I know what I was going to do. Let me, we don't have a lot of spit and polish here. Some people might say we're not very professional, but this spontaneous energy has been working for quite some time, 8 years. And I'm not going to make excuses. So a little out of order here. But what I'd like to do, because we don't know you, and we're really happy and honored that you're here sharing space with us today and honor us with your presence. We'd like to get to know you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the bio that you sent me, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. I read through it today, and also went to your page, which was very interesting. And I saw the post that you put up in regard to some of the topics, which I find very interesting too.
Sure.
So Theresa, our beloved sister, is a soul intuitive and energetic and verbal channel for the highest frequencies of love, joy, and beauty. Interprets and plays in the quantum field of creation as an artist, embodying the understanding that there is no separation between the painter and the painted, the poet and the poem. An experienced grid worker who served as a guardian of the primary ascension timeline, reactivating planetary stargates and Gaia's higher dimensional crystalline temples. Remembers contact with her star family from a very early age, and after awakening, she integrated countless galactic and multi-dimensional aspects of herself, as well as assisting others to do the same. There's more to that bio. I would encourage everybody to take a look at it. Also, to get over to her page, because there's some pretty powerful stuff that I noticed over the last couple of days that she's put out. So again, welcome. Thanks for coming. Welcome to Soul Speaks 5D.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, I usually ask people, when did you wake up? But I think your bio kind of touched on some of that stuff. You put up a couple of posts, and one of them was, well, the points you brought up were all intriguing and interesting, and your work is vital, obviously. But you brought up something about twin flames, and I read quite a bit of this a comprehensive post you put up, which actually talked about previous relationship and just some of the what I find to be the real codes, the real activations, transmissions, downloads coming from a fellow traveler who holds in common with all of us, being this human hybrid soul, walking through the unknown, feeling the human, on the journey of the human, but also, of course, taking in all the multidimensional higher aspects. So it's very, very refreshing to see something like that. Did you want to start there, or do you want to, wherever you want to start, whatever you want to do? It's a freestyle kind of thing.
Great. I would love to start there. I love that. I read a post that you wrote recently about hashtag humans are the heroes or something like that, you said.
Yeah.
And that resonates with me so much. Our humans are doing amazing work right now, and we're the shit. we're it. We're the show. I constantly hear from my galactic family and from the angelics. Wow, you guys are. This is it. This is what's happening. This is where the juice is, and so. A lot of times, in the awakening or ascension community, you'll hear a lot of disparaging remarks about the human. Oh, it's 3D, it's terrible. And this body is where the reunification or the realization of unity is happening in this body, in this now moment. right now in a, you could say I'm a hologram, but in a person called Theresa with very specific flavors to her and her personality and her life, and this lens or prism through which all of the light of source shines through. You know, each of us have that unique signature, and even though it might be changing all the time. So I say yay for the humans, and I personally relish my human journey. It's incredible. It's intense. It's heartbreaking. It's been wrenching, and it is so joyous for me right now. And I couldn't imagine being anywhere else but right here. So
I
really
agree
good.
with. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and yeah, that the human is the hero. You know, you're right. I know I spent I don't know, probably 2-3 years when I first got involved with Soulogy, writing about the ego, you know, and distancing myself from the ego, and I don't know, but the whole evolution, I think it's been the same for everybody. We're getting to a point now. We had some great shows over the last couple, 2-3 days that validate what you're talking about. People coming in with their own experiences, and really this newfound awareness. You know, the higher you get a higher awareness, and that usually means the higher perspective with the memories and the skills and abilities and such of the multidimensional aspects of ourselves and that all that. But
Yeah.
there's a higher awareness, I think, happening with the human. I said a couple of times over the last couple of days, if you go into the dictionary and see the definition of transmutation, I think the third definition down is a biological definition, which says the transformation of a species from one species to another. And at an energetic level, I think that's what's happening is through this awareness, we're having some type of conversion, blossoming, flowering, and that's mind blowing. You know, it's just mind blowing.
It is mind blowing. And, you know, I can go out on the street in a, you know, a normal town, small town or whatever, and see the crystalline frequencies coming off of, you know, see the light body of people who have no idea that that's the journey their DNA is taking them on. They just might have an open heart. And how extraordinary to see each other now, with the veils down, with the crystalline DNA humming and blasting out frequencies of love. It's very easy to see in the most mundane situations, and people don't have to be intellectually or mentally conscious of who they are. Those of us that are running that higher awareness all the time, you know, simultaneously with the what we might call the human experience, it's so visible in everything, in the flowers, in the trees, in the water, in the grocery clerk, in the UPS guy, you know. And yeah, are some people still not so much living in their hearts? Yeah, but still you can see the light and the love that they are, no matter what their journey is or what their awareness of it is. So
Yeah.
it's a blast. I mean, it was a blast to be a human now, really.
Yeah.
I mean, with the multidimensional consciousness online, it's not that I'm still releasing trauma, if you will, or distortions from my cellular consciousness. It still comes up and out. But a lot of us who have been on this journey for a long time are at the simultaneously holding the awareness that we're all that is in this fractal. And even as the old energies release, we're like, okay, you know, it's okay, it's all right. Yeah.
And they're still there.
Oh heavens, oh my
still there.
God. Yeah. That's what I wanted to, when I wrote about you know, my journey with my twin, I wanted and want to be as human about it as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's flushed up really the gnarliest judgments and outrageous behavior in myself, and you know, anger and rage, and you know, some of the most entrenched misunderstandings that we played out in the game of separation. And light that the two twins bring, activate in each other, and the kundalini, the amazing activations that are going to flush all of that stuff out. So I don't know about anybody else, but I sure haven't been exempt from it. And sometimes that looks like a shit show, honestly.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I was just going to say that, and that really, you go from one to whatever the higher number is. You got to go through two.
Yeah.
So these relations, or I guess potentially any relation between two people, regardless of what type of relationship it is really an opportunity, because they both do bring light, which then brings darkness, which is the road, which is the fuel for the expansion, but that you can see. Well, I think too, you said I'm not exempt from it, and I think that's another thing about these relationships. They're not all peaches and cream. They take work. They're just a magnification or an amplification of the singular's journey, which requires even more directness, more honesty, more integrity, more open-mindedness, more of everything, really, because now it's that whole I'm nothing, I'm everything. I'm still my individual, but we are an energy together. So it's like, it's a new math.
It is a new math, and it's a trip, and holding it with any sort of sanity or peace requires a constant heart opening again and again, back to the heart. But I like to think of myself as a very heart opened person until I met my twin, and gosh, did I, I went into so many judgments of him, not knowing he was my twin and just saying, this is all your shit and blah, blah, blah. And, bless his heart. I do believe it was his first Kundalini activation, although he's a very awake man, very awake on so many levels, very conscious of his star family and his own, what we call Zeta, Zeta wiring. He's way more Zeta and I'm way more Pleiadian in our DNA. And so he's able to talk about a lot of it, but the love between the twins and the sexual intimacy, the Kundalini will, flush out so much. And if you've never been through that before, you have to be a strong soul, or you're breaking all the circuits. You're just breaking all the circuits. Yeah.
So you said that you were projecting or judging, I think is what you said. Was that something that was subtle? Did you know you were doing it at the time? Did it?
I couldn't see my part. It's really been a whole almost year now long journey of me slowly owning the pieces. I'm not saying he's not acting out. He hasn't acted out certain distortions, and I think I know he would own that himself. And in fact, sometimes he's so hard on himself, and yet I realize in order for me to feel affected by that, I have to be in resonance with it. Some part of me has to be sharing that frequency of blame or victimhood or abuse or whatever it is, in order to even for me to be triggered by him or touched by him. Because if I wasn't in resonance with it, he could say anything with me, and it would be like this rain of flowers coming down on me. I love that story of the Buddha's awakening, that he was sitting under the Bodhi tree and the Maras, the demons, came in front of him and flung poisonous arrows his way. And the story goes that as the arrows of just venom and poison came down, he was so awake, so totally filled with love himself, that the arrows turned into flowers. There was nothing in him in resonance with distortion. And so it's been a journey for me, owning that his distortions are mine and mine are his. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. I know that Morgan told me this, but this was after probably 3 years of the 4 years we've been together. And she said, as I was dealing with that kind of stuff, she said that she had to deal with it. She had to deal with it early on, and that the way she integrated it was to literally own every single thing about me.
Yes.
Every single thing I did. And it clicked. When she told me that, I was like, oh, I get that now. And for me, because I was still having that dialogue in my head when things would happen, like, oh, why'd she do that? Or, whatever the case was, whatever the projection was, whatever it was that I wasn't looking at myself. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to see things in yourself, and so it's a lot easier to say, okay, well, that's me and I accept it and I love her unconditionally. And it actually worked very well. Now, so you were on this journey for quite some time. You talked about the previous relationship and the blessings and lessons that it offered and all that. I read that. How has this divine conscious union affected your journey? Has it altered your journey? I mean, I know it gave you some greater self-introspection in terms of the reality that you were judging or not owning something or unaware or unconscious. But has it in other ways? How has it in other ways affected your journey?
In some ways, I feel like it's exploded more of my purpose for being here. And I didn't understand what that all was. I was also completing some very ancient contract on my part of activating certain crystals and crystalline temples on the planet. But it also brought me to my next level of service, and to be able to see it and feel it, and that has, I would say, it's a very direct result. And my kind of newest passion is creating centers of sacred community that are centers for new earth innovation, whether that's entrepreneurship or art or music or the healing arts or whatever it is, new economies, new ways of being that are more in alignment with our hearts. I don't think I could have accessed the download of visions that I've had and am beginning to implement unless if I had had that very intense journey with him and realized, oh my gosh, as we come into unity consciousness, it's a very visceral experience. It's nothing in the head. It's really understanding in the heart and the body. This person is me. It's very, very visceral. And at first, when you start realize, at first you're like, ugh, you're not me. Ugh, this shit isn't me. Get away, get away. And there's so much rejection of the other in the process until you realize, oh fuck, I'm rejecting myself. It feels terrible when the person that you love more than anybody on the planet, that you've just rejected them. It's almost like stabbing yourself in the heart. It really, it's not like that, it is that.
Yeah.
So this process with him and internally with myself, first of all, it's really forced me to shore up my own masculine energy, to be the divine masculine within that I wanted him to be, or felt like he couldn't be, or whatever. Like, oh no, this is my responsibility. All the ways I'm projecting abandonment onto him or not believing in him are my own distrust of my inner masculine. So I've had to shore that up. And then I've realized that for those of us, all of us, whether we're on a twin journey or not, we're really having visceral, embodied experiences of what it means to be in union with each other. Yeah. Realizing that your neighbor is your hand, that's your hand. As we come together, as more and more unions are completed, whether that's twin unions or soulmates coming together, all sorts of divine partnerships, whether or not they're monogamous or not, that's the other piece, whether or not, doesn't matter. I have so many divine partnerships in my life, none of them sexual except for with my twin when we're together. But there's so many foundations coming together, souls coming together. as we acclimate to each other, and the bodies and the visceral experience get used to what it means to work as one organism,
Yeah.
we're being drawn into physical proximity with each other to literally create the new, to bring it into the physical, the new earth visions that we're having. We've already manifested them energetically, but now we're being called together to literally, we're performing, what's the word I'm looking for? We're creating, all sorts of alliances and projects and creations, and we're really beginning to bring forth the earth that we want to live on. And so my one of my passions right now is sacred community. And as people come together in community to collaborate and co-create in larger and larger numbers, basically the community is going to activate each other the same way the twins did.
Exactly.
And so we're going to elbow each other a lot and step on each other's toes until those of us who have visceral experiences of what it means to not be separate from the other are being called into leadership right now to share that transmission, so we can all play in the field of creation, because this is it's starting to get juicy now. It's starting to get really juicy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously an expanded awareness that we're having to release and let go and surrender. And I think that's another, because I see the unions as being a micro of this energetic component, this base component, which we look at it just as energy. It's just basically energy that will be picked up like a contagion. That's I see how that looks to me. But well, it's souls light up other souls. So
it is.
Yeah. So and then with the whole thing with the unions too is obviously it's a fast track of some sort. It's a mirror. It's an amplification. It's a trigger, to awakening to parts of you that you're not aware of, and this and that. Have you noticed, or have you had to let go in your time together? Have you had to let go of of yourself, of your partner, of your relationship? You know what I mean?
All of it. In my whole awakening journey, I've let go of everything a person can let go of. Home, I've let go of homes. Home, even right now, I don't even have my own home. I've been nomadic the last 2 years. Cars, money, bankruptcy, the identification of being in a partnership with a woman, of being a lesbian, to like all of a sudden, oh, I'm with men. Hello, that's a whole, like all sorts of self-identity. Since I met my twin, it's letting go of all of my ideas about what I think a relationship's supposed to look like. What does it really mean when you love someone? Well, right now, it means that I take joy in whatever his path is. Yeah. If that means being with a new lover, I take joy in that. Yeah. And I mean it quite literally. I'll share a very intimate detail, but I feel compelled to share it because I know other people experience this in the twin unions. He and I had not been in touch for a while. I had a sense I knew he was traveling. He was in Europe, and I knew he was coming. I thought he was coming back to the States again, even though he and I weren't in touch. And this is very intimate, but I'm going to share it. I felt his sexual arousal, and I knew it wasn't about me, because the twin connection is so telepathic. You will, if you're a clairsentient, if you feel things in your body, you're going to feel the motions, the even sometimes I feel what he craves to eat. It's so visceral in my body. So I felt his sexual arousal. I don't usually get turned on except for by him. And I'm like, oh, okay, you got to deal with this one, Theresa, because he's about to connect with somebody. And so I went through a lot of feelings about that. I can't say jealousy, really, more a sense of like, why can't he choose? Why can't he be with me right now? Why can't he keep coming back to me? And so there was this sadness that, and then it brought up some past lives that I had to clear of abandonment and betrayal between the two of us. But so I even have to, even though I've been open-minded, I've never been in a sexually open relationship, but it brought me back to myself and said, if this may be the exact right thing for him right now.
Yeah.
Who am I to say? In fact, some twins really need to learn lessons in a way, or even learn lessons, have experiences in a way that they just can't have with you. And probably you and Morgan did most of that before you met, but that's not the case for all twins. You know, they'll continue to explore other relationships, or they'll be married. There'll be a huge age difference. There'll be continents apart.
Yeah.
So they're still exploring and wrapping up other soulmate experiences, resolving other timelines. And so I had to just say, okay, all right, if this is what happens, this is what happens. And I saw a photo of his lover, and immediately, because I'm so into it, I'm like, oh, she's one of our soulmates. She's a soul. If she's his soulmate, she's my soulmate. And so I actually felt a lot of love for her. Like, okay, they have some work to do together. And, you know, I'm not sure right now, they're not together, and I don't know where they're going, and he doesn't either. And I am amazingly okay, and continuing to come back to the marriage within me.
Yeah. It's that's the fast track. That's the, you know, I remember when we first met, you know, you have that, you know, it just clicks. So you immediately understand each other.
Yeah.
You know, where so many of us, especially those of you who have been awake for so long, you were like, you know, a lone wolf, and it was hard to find somebody to talk to that y'all could relate to. But I remember when we were taking it in the early days, and even coming from very distinct polarities in so many different ways, we both understood that although we felt something, there was this knowing, whether we admitted it to each other or not, that there is no guarantee. There is no absolution with this universe other than universal law. You know, I mean, but there's no, you can't throw down an absolute like, oh, this is the way it's going to be. And so I always looked at it like, okay, well, whatever it is that I have coming, so to speak, it's whatever I can think of with her, it's that or something better with her or someone else. And that works both ways. And even she says today, she'll say, you know, we are what we are, but it's all about what we do every day, you know, and that's the kind of where I wanted to segue into is the value. So much emphasis is becoming more and more cast more and more upon the human, our human aspect, you know.
Is.
And I'm Todd one time, and you're you one time. There's got to be something about that. It's not just a character in a video game. There's something about this consciousness, and there's something about these relationships that can bring the human to the forefront. Like for you, you've had these multidimensional connections and all these different things, right? And I see it in people, and it's incredible, especially so many of these women that have been doing this for so long, how powerful that is, and how, you know, how with the frequency of suppression in our DNA of the woman, and just the power and the challenge to the ego. You know, I'm channeling so and so, and I've, you know, got a connection that's unique, and it's, you know, it's different than yours, and we get into the competitiveness and the comparison. But my point is, in the relationship, has it been a catalyst for you coming face to face with Theresa, the human aspect? You know,
it's I cannot hide anymore. You know, without him, I obviously had some places I was hiding out still.
Yeah.
or there's something about that twin connection that shines light into the crevices that really even the most experienced person at integration and mental and emotional health, so many of us, well, I'll just say this, so many of us with the ability to connect multidimensionally, to remember many lifetimes. I've remembered hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes.
Yeah.
Most of us come in with some pretty heavy duty trauma. And there are reasons for that things were so shitty in our families growing up. And in part, they kept us connected. They kept us out of the body and in the other realms, if you will. And then also they gave us part of our mission, which was to learn complete and total love and acceptance and integration of any shadow aspects. But this relationship has brought me to my knees in terms of having to look at my shit.
Yeah.
And no hiding, even if he's not with me physically, the intensity of the union, which is there, whether we're together physically or not, the intensity of the union is this constant like magnification or spotlight on any part of me that's in distortion, that's not walking my talk, that's full of shit. Yeah.
And what about the sacred sexuality? I mean, we were fortunate because we were both celibate when we met, and both had kind of made that choice of, hey, I'm not doing this again unless it's exactly what we got, which is all great. But even having said that, the sacred sexuality, the sacred sexual vibration, which is that Kundalini, exponentially magnified, and it's new and it's old and it's got so much stuff contained in it. So where I'm going with this is how what have you noticed that's different about these experiences in that sacred sexual vibration? And do you when you've entered that space, have you received further coding, downloads, transmissions, expansions in any way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say prior to my twin, I had soulmate relationships that were significant, in which I already had some of those experiences, just massive openings. And because of my personal life, of my personal journey, I have had to delve deeply into the sexual shadow and begin to clear it out. I'll just share a little bit because it'll give background to that sacred sexuality. My mother was raped and I was conceived through rape, and she gave me up for adoption, and I was raised by an adoptive family. I did not know that growing up. And in my adoptive family, I was molested by my grandfather around the age of 2 to 4, something like that. I repressed those memories. I went through different different experiences of sexual abuse in my adult life, childhood and adult life. And so a lot of my journey has been about bringing the totality of my God consciousness into the sexual act. So I have been working on this consciously for a long time, bringing love into all the places that held abandonment, betrayal, abuse. I've seen lifetimes in which I was a predator, a terrible predator, doing ritualistic things. So I've gone back through very distorted sexual lineages to clear them out with love.
Yeah.
So that's a precursor. So I have always, it's not that I've never had casual sex in my life. I have in my adult life, but most of my sexual relationships have been there's been a very strong soul connection. So I opened to a lot of that even before I met my twin. He hadn't had that so much. So a lot of what we've gone through, two things that I've noticed. I really have held the container for him sexually, because the Kundalini flushes out so much shame and trauma. And God bless the men. You guys have not had very much support or yeah, you haven't had very much support or any kind of societal support to deal with sexual shame and all of the stuff that goes along with being a man. And so I've been holding a lot of that container for him, which doesn't mean that I do his work. It just means I love him while he feels the release of the old energies and the old judgments.
Yeah.
So in that, there are ways he's been my guide, and that's one of the ways I feel like I've been his guide.
Yeah.
So initially there was a lot of that, and he's gone through a whole journey of, I would say, sexual awakening in that. The other piece that you would, call the sacred sexuality is, for me, gosh, I still don't even have words about what it's like to be sexually with the person who's the same as you, who's your own soul. And the level of, I'm tearing up even talking about it, the level of overwhelm of the dissolving into the all is, it's really beyond words.
Yeah.
And so am I aware of codes coming in? Yes. Am I aware of sometimes opening portals, activating certain parts of the planet with our lovemaking? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's an amazing thing. It's an unknown. I mean, we don't even know. We're like in elementary school, it's just, it's really, she had the innate understanding what not to do, which was basically anything we've done before. If it looks like, the past, then we're not doing it. Now, we both had desires to do it, but she held strong, and eventually I figured it out. I caught the drift, and then we started to have these episodes, which can come anytime, which don't look anything like where we came from, which are ecstatically way beyond anything. And I've lived a full life, but way beyond anything. And then the kicker being, you have an episode and all of a sudden the room fills up with beings, or you're flying through the cosmos and you're getting these messages. But I think the most impactful part of it, I want to ask you about this, is the third energy that's created by these two souls. There's a third energy created, which, for all intents and purposes, has a life of itself, that may show up in a joint mission, that may show up in other creative collaborations or co-creations, or even a joint co-creation. Are you experiencing anything like that? Or do you guys have a joint mission? Do you guys see do you see the third energy? Do you feel the third energy?
Yes, I do see and feel the third energy. I think because we're still in a dance right now, I don't think that third energy will come into fruition. Am I aware of it? Yes. Trying to decide how to say it. I would say we're still in the beginning stages. We're not where you and Morgan are. But I've actually experienced some of what you're describing with soulmates before, which is, sharing the same oversoul, but not being the same soul.
Yeah.
And so that's my reference point for what you're talking about. With my twin, it's been more of a healing journey for him, and me holding the space for that.
Yeah.
And, but I'm very aware of the third energy, and I feel that it will come into fruition, assuming he and I come into full union.
Yeah.
And that's what I've completely released, is that is the direction of the universe. The universe wants the twins to come together. That in itself is a mission. Yeah. After that, I believe there's also an activation of another mission. And so, but we're not in complete union right now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, not on the human level.
Yeah.
And so always on the spirit level. And so, I can't wait to find out what that is. Do I have visions of it? Yes, I do. But right now I tend to focus on, well, this is where we are, you know, this is,
Well, yeah.
I hope
You're,
that.
you're brave to be talking about this at the level of intimacy, intimate information that you're sharing with us. So I really appreciate that, and I think everybody does, because there's a lot of truth in that vulnerability and that rawness. And I don't want to spend all the time on that, because there's a couple other things you wanted to talk about. But I really do just want to say again, and Duncan said the same thing. Thank you for sharing that information, because it's a tricky subject, you know, especially with all the labeling and tainting of even a phrase like twin flames or soulmates or whatever. You know, because you've got all these different versions of the template, including, we've got a beautiful lady here who's been a big supporter of ours, Sue Fitz, who's on many of these shows will say, I have a relationship, and he's on the other side. And you can, and that she's not the only one. So there's all these different variations. I got to believe there's multiple templates, but at the core, it's all the same template, that base component of this transition, which just happens to have a face on it that might look like a couple, but it's actually just the face of the energy that we're all tapping into and expanding. Now, you've got a couple other things you wanted to talk about. I'm going to let you lead from there.
Thank you. Thank you for letting. I did want to make a plug for our Mount Shasta retreat that my business partner and best friend Wanda Vitale and I are we're convening on the mountain September 5th to 9th. And right now, I think we have somewhere between 16 and 20 people signed up for the retreat. So it's still small enough to be intimate. And she and I will be co-facilitators. And we're the title of the retreat, or the condensing of the energy, we're calling it Alive in the Mystery.
Wow.
I can't remember the subtitle, something like Joy, Freedom, and Creation in quantum uncertainty, because we're so aware of living in the now. There's the way we anchor in stability now doesn't look anything like in 3D. So there's a constant possibility for change. Where's my focus? And yet we are anchoring in our hearts, in the now moment. And how do you create from that space where, depending on whatever's going along, things can change on a dime? And so we're already bringing through downloads for that. Both Wanda and I, our fields act as one. She is one of my divine partners, although it's just completely a friendship, but she's definitely one of my divine partners. We literally function as one device in our downloads. And so right now we're downloading records from the Living Library of Gaia, some pieces that have never been unlocked in the ascension process, records about living in peace on earth, living in the new Eden, if you will, pieces of the Eden template that are to be further unlocked. And when a group like this comes together, each person has a piece of their DNA or a configuration in their DNA that can unlock different downloads. So we're meeting on the mountain. We're super thrilled about it. Some of the catchphrases my guides are bringing through is New Earth platform. I see a very physical alliance of certain leaders and a self-governing leadership body. I know that we'll do this in pockets. It'll be very egalitarian. We're not looking at hierarchies at this point, a very egalitarian, but this is a certain soul pod that's coming together to begin to disseminate some of the downloads and literally physically anchor onto the earth, into what appears to be 3D, some of these new collaborations. So that's September 5th to 9th. The mountain.
That's awesome. Now, how many, you've got 15 or 20 now, but how many are you thinking you're going to have, or could you have?
We were told about 25 were coming. Wanda and I don't choose these retreats. These retreats choose us. Everything comes through as channeled, and the guides will tell us this is how many people are coming. We're told there are 25 participants, around 25 coming. And so, I mean, we're open to more. We would so welcome them. I think we have 20 registered, 16, 17, 18, something like that. And we're welcome to more, but that's what we're told who's coming. And yeah, and there'll be a lot of intimacy and amazing chance to network with a variety of people. So
very cool.
Yeah,
Sounds very cool.
we're super excited about it. It's a really powerful group. Couple folks from Australia, from Europe. I'm hoping to get a friend here who's Kenyan. We're really lighting up some other spots on the globe too, with some of the downloads. So, but
and then you've got this vision too. These communities. You named a few locations.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I'm in the process of founding a vision that came through to me in the spring of at least 3 separate, I call them New Earth Living Centers. So there's a residential component of intentional community, but also the chance for visiting artists and healers and innovators and entrepreneurs and musicians to come and collaborate as kind of a living experiment in the higher vibrational realms, a living experiment of collaboration. And I was just gifted the seed money for the first center in Mount Shasta. Wow. And I don't have the property yet, but there are an amazing group of people coming together, and that will be our first center. But in my vision, which was just completely given to me by my higher self, a center in Mount Shasta, a center in southern France, and a center in Kenya, Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and those are 3 of my homelands on the planet. I've done a lot of grid work and activations in Africa, France, and Northern California. Yeah. So I am beyond thrilled about this. I invite anybody who is interested in the topic of sacred community, new economies, new collaborations, global villages. I see we're drawing also particularly from the indigenous Kenyan culture. I was called to Mount Kenya with 2 other grid workers last year to activate a master crystal in Mount Kenya. We were called by 12 indigenous shaman in the ethers. We hadn't ever met them. We were called in, we answered the call. And so I see a partnering of different, I see different threads collaborating in this triangle among the centers. So centers for innovation and living, yeah, and the template of really living in a village, in a tribe, is super dear to my heart. Yeah. And, so I can't wait to see what happens there. Yeah.
It's powerful. It's a powerful proposition. Absolutely.
Really,
I think there's a lot of that stuff going on in one form or fashion, and I
yes,
kind of goes back to something you said a while ago. Not to get back on the partnership, but well, you said something though. You said when and it could be any 2, I guess, like say you and Wanda, when they come together, that's the mission, and then from that comes a mission, right? And I think, yeah, you're starting to see some of that as we move from codependency to co-creation and collaboration.
That's it exactly. Yeah, in our France retreat this last spring, I saw people who had never met. It was an intimate retreat, maybe 12 or 13 of us, I can't remember. And I saw people who had never met. They went to each other like this, the same, almost, they were soulmates, and they were looking at each other going, oh my gosh, it's you, And so those kinds of soul relationships are happening in the physical right now. And the collaborations that grow out of divine partnerships that aren't even necessarily romantic or sexual.
Yeah.
It's seeding an entire way of being on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you've seen a lot on your journey. You've seen a lot of change, such as seeing more and more people awaken. Yes. And also there seems to be, over the last few months, as we're moving, really at a quantum and no longer linear pace,
Truly.
these drastic, immediate, powerful, overnight frequencies that become available and therefore utilized, and these massive transformations from the old guard to a new guard, let's put it that way, in people, in the community, at warp speed. I mean, has this been something that has caught your eye? Have you noticed? I mean, you obviously are very much on top of yourself in your own self-introspection and keeping yourself in check. Have you noticed, or what have you noticed in terms?
Gosh, I see it happening everywhere. I see awakened friends or people in my awakened community. They may not be doing any specific energy work, but they're so heart-centered and energetically aware that they're taking over leadership of community co-ops. I have a friend who's going to be hired as the general manager for a very large co-op in Northern California. And I know that sounds like, well, what difference does that make? It makes all the difference. It is the complete grassroots awakening where community centers and hometown governments and schools and are starting to change from within because of the mass awakening, because of people living in their hearts. And this, yes, there are people working on the top down, but most of the change comes from us every day in the way we live and connect and play and work with each other. And I see it happening like snowballs all over the place. Because mainstream media focuses on the shenanigans. Who cares? That's things are collapsing. That's going to happen. Bless everybody who served as the shadow for the entire collective. But at the same time, all these amazing heart-centered beings are doing things every day, making a difference. And it's so exciting. And this is our new earth. And wake up and see it, everybody, because it's gorgeous. It's amazing. You can just walk out the door and see the trees shining like gold and crystal and silver. And we're here. You just have to open your eyes and your heart to see it.
Well, and there are people out there like yourself and Wanda, people that have been doing this for a long time. They've been heeding the call for a long time, who have who have let go and released and detached from family and possessions, and the drill, because you just told us about this at the top of the show. One of the reasons I love doing this show is because of the experiences that people like you have had. People are experiencing the same thing now.
They are.
So they get a lot from it. Now, in terms of hearing your aligned aspects, hearing that call, hearing that voice, on your journey, detaching from stuff, going against conventional wisdom, going against what society says you're supposed to do, family and all that, it's tough. And I know you've had some tough times, but here we are. In one breath, you said, I don't have anything. I gave up houses, I gave up this, I gave up that. Yet you also got this download, and you've received as a gift seed capital for the first community. Now, my question is, what would you, at this stage of the game, what would you tell anyone who's in that situation that you went through and so many others? How do you hang on? How do you not give up? How do you trust? How do you detach? How do you keep the faith? That you're not crazy. That you know what I mean? Do you have any advice for those who are experiencing that?
Yeah, I would say that we don't hang on. I would say it's impossible to hang on, and yet it's an ingrained survival response in the nervous system to hang on. And so we work simultaneously through our hearts with the parts of us that are fucking terrified and who are sometimes literally losing all of your health goes down the drain, or you can't sleep for a decade, or you lose your income, whatever it is. There is it is ingrained in us to fight that, but the more we can surrender to it, and that's, God, it's such a platitude, but it's so true. The more we can surrender to it and say, God, show me the way, or higher self, show me the way, whatever your heart centered, focus is, show me the way. Because as we let go, the most amazing bounty starts coming into our lives. But it's the letting go or the holding on that's so freaking painful. And it's actually the freedom comes in the letting go. And so I could not have let go with as much ease and grace. And sometimes it was not easy or graceful. Sometimes it was sloppy and messy and ugly, and I was down on my knees. But I could not have let go without people cheering me, going, Theresa, you can do this. I received so much love and support, down to my last $10, down, what I had a friend I was literally down to my last $10, and she had already been through a lot of that. And she said, do you know what you do when you're down to your last $10? And I said, no, what? And she said, you buy a cheap 6-pack of beer and make bean tacos, and you invite all your friends over.
I like your friend.
I know it. Or you give it away, and you just finally let go. And so reach out to people who have gone through it. That's, those of us who've gone through it, I still give away a lot of things. I do sessions for pay, but I do a lot of pro bono work, and reach out to people who are walking their talk, because it's the aloneness that kills us. And sometimes that's a necessary part of the journey. It is. It was for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but reach out and then let go.
Yeah, I think that the giving too is important. I picked that up from a friend of mine a while back, and I got to say, I kind of got away from it a little bit. I mean, it's not as active in me.
Oh my gosh, look at Todd, you're the epitome of giving. Look at what you and Morgan are doing here. Oh my gosh, such generosity flows from you in every way. Every show you do is a gift.
Thank you. And that, you know what? Thank you for slapping me. That was no, but the thing is, what I was going to say is, but I know it works. But I was thinking at the human interaction level, tipping somebody, and we do that too. I'm just saying that there was a point where as I was telling this and reflecting on it, I remember I was very conscious of it. Now, Morgan wasn't with me. I was traveling a lot. And so I was engaging that, but anyway, you're right. And where I'm at today, when I get in those situations, which I'm in one now, quite honestly, the universe says, take the money out of it, take the resources out of it, take the material out of it, go into the non-physical, which is basically go do what you do and just put your heart expression. Put your heart's expressions out there and keep doing what you're doing, and it will be reciprocated. I'm seeing evidence of that, and I think that's kind of a good follow-up to what you said, because that's a real part of the journey. I think it's probably going to be easier for those now, because there's more people from the pool of experience that they can hear about or talk to. So, but I think it's important, and I think it's an important time too for projects like Soulogy, for projects like what you guys are doing, because once they start illuminating, that is that collaboration, co-creation, energetic, base component that's going to another base component that's going to explode onto this earth. So
it's true. It's true. It's in the crystal, as the crystalline grids, they're fully online now, and a lot of us are anchoring physical projects. I mean, Soulogy is a physical project too. And we really are these points of light on the globe, and people are starting to see us. They're starting to say, oh my gosh, I'm not going through this alone. Look at today, I can tune into Todd's program and I listen to someone that teaches me how to do soul retrieval, or teaches me about inner child healing, or, helps me recenter on the abundance in my life, whatever it is. And so it's happening now. It's really exciting, actually. You
Yeah.
will be taken care of. So much abundance is yours, Todd. I feel it in your field, and you keep coming back to this beautiful heart-centered service you're providing, and there is such wealth in that. There's no way for you not to attract it in physically.
Yeah, I'm not sweating like I used to, but
Yeah.
it's still in the back of your mind, right? Jenny Smith always has great comments and quotes in the on the shows, and she just had to put one up. She said, "It's time. Get ready for anything."
It's
And that,
true.
you know, and that's how I feel. We've spent so much time discovering ourselves by going through, let's just say, shadow. I mean, I don't know how you put it, you know, and I say shadow with the highest respect and reverence.
I do
But
too.
it's like something's shifted now. It's like we have enough flexibility. You know, there's enough of the strings have been cut that we can actually maneuver and create. And by doing that, kind of like you were talking about the Kundalini energy, you look at the physiological, etherical, or whatever of that going through. There is no thought. There is no nothing. It's just this force goes through there, like Kali, the goddess, you know, pulling out all the dirt and the grime. And so that's how I see the creativity thing. It's also a tool for healing. It doesn't always have to be what is the problem, let's go in and remove it. Now there's another component that still works, but there's a component of collaboration, unconditional trust, and co-creating. That's where two or more gather. And I really I'm glad you brought that up, what your projects are, because I think there are more people approaching us about, hey, we're doing this, hey, we're doing that, and I think that's a great sign for all of us. That's a great way to pull everyone together. Do you have anything that you want to address before we sign off? I'm not really clear. I mean, I know you do energy work. You know, how can people find you? How can they find out about your Mount Shasta
Thank you.
trip?
Yeah. I do individual and group sessions. I'm an intuitive soul reader and do energy healing, and do usually twice annual global retreats. This one in Mount Shasta. You can find the information for that on Wanda's website, which is vitalenlightenment.com/Shasta. And I'll stick a link in the comments.
Good.
And
Yeah.
my website is Poem of Atoms, POEM of Atoms, ATOMS.com.
Oh, wow.
And you can find me on Facebook under that name, or my name, Theresa Luttenegger. And I'd be so happy to connect with you if you resonate with my work.
Absolutely. I would love to. Absolutely. And we love Wanda too. She's the real deal.
She is the real deal.
She's the real deal. Yeah. Now, yeah. And so we're obviously, you know, over here, but I don't know, we're going to be going to the mainland or not, but I sure feel like that, or it's, I guess, a matter of when, but I sure feel like that a lot of these connections we've made on the show are going to be in person as well. So I'm looking forward to.
I do too. I hope we connect in some way in the future. And
now
you'll just
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Allow me one shout out to a colleague and a friend. Her name is Shelley Young of Trinity Esoterics, and I could not have made any of this twin flame journey without her support. She's in a twin relationship and has put a beautiful body of work out there around the twin journey. And
let's get her on.
Yeah, let's get her on.
Can you? Hey, you know, you got to.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Yeah,
and she's a channel for Archangel Gabriel. Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd be very open to yeah, this is how we do it. You just network and keep doing it. Yeah, this is what this platform's for. It's for people like you and her and Wanda, and this is what we're here for. So yeah, by all means, if you're open to it, she's open to it. We'd love to collaborate with her.
Yeah,
I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wanda, for introducing us. I look forward to future collaborations. Thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence today.
Thank you to you and Morgan. Many, many blessings. I hope we connect again.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Bye-bye.